Hi, I'm Robert with BTOD.com, and today I'm going to show you how to assemble the autonomous SmartDesk core. So the SmartDesk core from Autonomous, on their website they list it as an easy assembly, and they say it takes about 15 to 30 minutes to assemble it. Now I've set this up a couple times now, and you're going to be watching me do it. It's going to maybe take a little longer as we're showing you how to do it with the different steps, but I think they're 15 to 30 minutes. If you're using the right tools and everything, that's a very realistic time frame. So I'll be using the assembly instructions that came with our desk. You also can download them from a PDF off their website. As you can see, I have all the parts taken out of the box, laid out on the table here. I'll just mention a couple extra tools that make the process go a little bit easier. So I have a power drill, helps you get the screws in the desk later on in the process. And then also a tape measure. This way we can get our frame lined up perfectly squared on the desktop. We're ready to get into step one. So what we're going to do is loosen the screws on this cross piece. So what that's going to do is allow the frame to be the width of the desktop that we are using. So I'm going to start by using a tape measure and one of our smaller Allen wrench, and just loosen all 8 of these screws. So we don't need to take them out, we're just going to loosen them. And then I'm going to be using a 48-inch top, 48-inch wide. So what I want to do is have this cross piece be about 46 inches. Okay, so the reason I'm going to do that, I'm going to pull it out so that it's at about 46 inches. The reason I want 46 is that way there will be about 1 inch of overhang of the work surface on each side when this is attached to the frame. Now I know maybe this is a little hard to picture right now, but when this is on our work surface, we want 1 inch on each side of the leg. So I'll show you that when we get a little later in the process. So once we have this stretched out to 46 inches, so I went about 2 inches shorter than the width of my top, I'm going to just tighten these back down. And this we can tighten them down real tight so that there's no movement. Moving on to step 2, I'm going to be attaching the legs to the cross beam. So to make this easier, what I did is I set my legs next to the cross beam, lined up exactly where they're going to go. There's this big open space on each side. And then once I have that lined up just right, and as you can see, I have those screws that I just tightened. They're going to be facing to the top. Okay, now I'm just going to pick this up, set this right down over the top. Okay, and that fits right on there. You'll see there's a little opening for where the cords go for the motor. That'll slide right through. Now once I have that on, I'm going to be grabbing my small M screws and that same smaller Allen wrench that I used on step 1. I'll start on the end here and just line these up. So it helps to kind of move the leg around a little bit to help you line up the screws. I'm just going to put those in by hand to start. Okay, so I have those 2 started, and then there's also 2 on the inside of the frame. You'll be able to see those a little better when I get over to the other leg. But we're going to get all 4 of these started. It's probably the most tedious part of the process, but it's not too bad. Now once I have those started, it's going to go through with that smaller hex wrench, and these can all be tightened up. Okay, so I'm going to move on to the second leg here, and one thing I'll add real quick at this point is these legs can go on either side. So it doesn't matter which leg is on which side, just so long as the leg that's sticking up here is on the outside, and then the motor kind of sticks towards the inside. So I'll move on to the next side here. Again, just kind of move that leg around until that screw wants to fit in there. It's a little hard to get my fingers into that tight space, so I cheated a little bit with the Allen wrench. We're going to move on to step 3 now, which is going to be attaching the feet to the legs. Now this is kind of the same thing. The feet can go on either leg and they actually can go either direction. So it's pretty easy, just grab one and bring it on there. And we're going to be using our larger screws now. Those are our K screws, and you also need to switch over to the larger Allen wrench. So I'll grab the first foot and just set it right on top here. You can see right down, it's pretty easy. See where those screws line up. And I'm going to start these all by hand first, and then once they're all in and everything's lined up properly, I'll go ahead and tighten them down. Step 4, we actually flipped our frame over, and now we're going to attach our side brackets onto the side of the frame. Now, just like some of our other steps, these brackets can go on either side, so you don't have to worry about which one you start with. And they do have sort of an L shape, like a bracket, so that it's going to hang on the side here, as opposed to, you know, being upside down. And we're going to use our those smaller screws again, and the smaller hex wrench. So just like always, I'm going to start by just lining those up, getting the first one started, then I'll get that next one started, and then tighten these both down. And moving on to the other side. And you might be wondering, is it possible to use our power drill to do some of these parts? And I guess the answer is yes, you could. Personally, I just use the Allen wrench. You already know exactly what size to use and everything because it's provided. And also, this way I can kind of be careful not to over tighten things. With the power drill, sometimes you have the tendency to power things in too hard. So that's nice and tight. We're going to roll right into step 5 here, which is very simple. We're going to take these little black rubber cushions, they call them, and these are going to just fit right on top of the bracket here. You'll see there's 4 holes on each side. They just kind of get pushed right inside there. Okay, so we have the 4 for the outside legs, and then, yep, there also is some for the inside as well. So I'll grab those. And then there's 4 right here. And these are going to be, when we flip the desk over, you'll see these are where we're going to be screwing the frame onto our work surface. So for step 6 here, we're going to be flipping our frame upside down and putting it on top of our work surface. And then you'll see I also put a blanket down on the bottom. That way we protect the top of our surface so that we don't get any scratches while we're kind of moving things around a little bit. Now we are using one of our own BTOD work surface. So it does not have pre-drilled holes, but with the screws provided and a power drill, you're able to easily screw those screws down into the desk. So you'll be able to see that when I'm doing it. And one other thing, you might want to get a little help when you're flipping over that frame upside down. It is, rather heavy, a little awkward for just one person. So we have it upside down. Now, if you remember earlier, we measured our frame out to about 46 inches, and that was to give a little overlap on each side. So I'm gonna kind of show you that. Our work surface, 48 inches. Our frame is gonna be a little bit over that 46 now, 46 and a half, because we added these side brackets. But this way it gives us about, a little bit more than a ½ inch on each side. So I'm gonna just square this up. Once again, like other steps in our process, this does not necessarily have a front and back or left and right. It's a T-based design, so you just kind of center it up in the middle of your work surface and you're fine. So about 3.5 from the back. Bring it up just a little bit. I'm also going to check the side, so we have just under 1 inch here. Okay, and once we have our frame centered, we're ready to go ahead and drill those screws down, connect that frame to the work surface. Using 12 of our O screws, I'm now going to just screw this top right in. I like to kind of go side to side, kind of across, so I'm going to start back here. You want to have your screw gun set at a torque setting where it gets nice and tight but doesn't strip out the screws here. So like I said, I'll go over to the other corner. And once those corners are in, just go ahead, get all 12 screws in. Step 7, we're going to be attaching our control box onto the bottom side of our work surface. So we're going to use those same screws, our O screws, to attach that down. So I'm going to be putting this closer to me, which I'll consider this the back side of the desk. Again, doesn't necessarily matter, I can choose, but I'll call this the back side. And again, using those same O screws, 2 holes on the sides to screw this. Now finally we have step 8, which is going to be taking our control switch and attaching that to the front side of the desk, and then we'll put in our power cable last. And since we called this back side of the desk where we put the control box, we'll use our switch on the front side of the desk. With this desk, you can actually just choose which side you want the desk or the switch to be on. I'll choose over on what's going to end up being the left side of the desk. And then I'll use these real small P screws. So now I'll attach these cables. We have the motor cables. There's 2 slots, doesn't matter which one you put them in. Just clip right in. Then we have our switch cable. Goes next to those motor cables. And then finally, our power cord. Over on the other side. If you want a nice clean setup, you can use the cable ties. They stick to the bottom of the work surface. So I'll show you how I do that to get these looking all nice and clean, neat, so that your legs aren't getting caught in the cables underneath the desk. So the last thing we need to do before you can start using your desk is we're going to reset our control box. So I'm going to hold down the up and down buttons at the same time. We'll see the desk go down to its lowest position, and then we'll actually see the actual height on the desk. Okay, so it actually looked like it moved up a tiny bit, but it brought it down to what it is, its lowest position. It then shows us 29.5. Can now move the desk up and down. So one last thing I'll show you. I'm gonna move this down to about 30 inches. Okay, so let's have this be our standing height. So let's program this as our standing height. I'm gonna hold down the M button till it's flashing, and then I hit 1. Okay, so then P1 flashed up for just a second, so that's going to be our sitting height. Now let's move this up to my standing height. Okay, so at about 43 inches here, I'm going to hold down that M button again. It started flashing, I'm going to hit 2. Okay, P2 flashed for a second, so that should be programmed. Just to show you, press and hold 1, go back down to that programmed setting of 1 for my sitting height. Well, we made it to the end. Our desk is assembled. Now I hope this helped you out. If it did, just hit that like button for us, that helps us out. And make sure to subscribe. We got tons of standing desk content, office chair content, different ergonomic things coming out. So make sure to subscribe so you see all that stuff when it comes out. Thanks for watching.